my own personal opinion is most of the allegations against him are much more complicated than the mainstream media would have you believe. And I don't think Donald Trump is a rapist or a sexual assaulter. I do think he's taken inappropriate liberties with women and gotten handsy with them in a way he's owned himself. Okay. Years ago when he was a celebrity, and it is what it is. That's the past. I don't give a shit about Trump getting handsy with somebody 20 years ago.
I just want to understand something clearly. Donald Trump was found liable for sexual abuse in a civil court. He's been accused by many women. You don't believe any of that?
I think the most serious thing I've heard about him has been the E. Jean Carroll allegation that he sexually assaulted her in a Bergdorf dressing room. And I don't believe one word of that.
There's
Not
many,
one word.
there are other women who have said.
I know, I've interviewed some of them. But look, the things I heard were included things like he got handsy on an airplane. Now, I don't know whether that happened or it didn't, but do I find that a deal breaker for a possible politician? Not really.
So it's no secret that the new batch, I think this is the secondary large batch of Epstein files, had recently been released from the Department of Justice. Jeffrey Epstein is really a bad man. And all of these other men who went to his island, who did certain things with him, who engaged with women, who engaged with young women, girls, underage girls, who did a lot of bad things. Well, let's just say these were white men. These were wealthy white men, which is exactly the point I want to point out, that these were wealthy white men. Now, the FBI didn't have to do a whole lot of work. I mean, after all, Jeffrey Epstein basically did a Nixon. He was recording himself. This guy was actually emailing himself, documenting. He was a good, he kept records of certain things, recordings of his friends, because that's the thing. He wanted to blackmail his powerful, his wealthy, his politically connected friends in order to demand favors later on. This is why he did all these recordings and did all this documentation and everything and videotape, because if he can get those guys on the take, he can basically leverage those images or videos or whatever, or that information, to blackmail his friends to get whatever he wanted to get. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because in the process of women, because again, Jeffrey Epstein was a guy who probably would have never had a problem with procuring a black woman or any type of woman, whether she's from Thailand, wherever, whether she's from the Philippines, whether she's from Vietnam, from Brazil. He would have had no problem getting those women if, say, a multi-billionaire walked up in there and said, hey, look, this is what I like. I have a taste for this type of woman. He would have had no problem with doing that, because he was all about trying to get whatever he wanted to get. He wanted to wield his power. He wanted to control people, at the same time get more money, most likely, and basically pulled strings behind the scenes. A lot of times, I'm not going to get into it, but this is what happens a lot of times behind the scenes. And a lot of blackmail and a lot of control, and politicians are normally on the take. Politicians are victims of this, but they put themselves in situations to be victimized. All right. So he would have had a problem if one of these wealthy multi-millionaire, many of these guys are making well over 100 million. Many of them are billionaires. And he didn't bring them on because none of those men demanded to have black women. I want to mention also, I'm glad that none of these men had a hankering for black women, because it's unfortunate that any woman has to be mistreated in this fashion. But I particularly never want black women or girls to be abused or raped or harmed in any fashion, particularly by these white supremacists. And white supremacists is exactly who they are. Think about, this is a person who Donald Trump hung out with. He had company with. He had a long time friendship with. This is not a mistake. Birds of a feather flock together. This is who Donald Trump is, except he's not as fat and he's not as old. That's the only difference. But Jeffrey Epstein, you can have access to it. I think the file number's like EFT A012455620. I believe that's it. Where Jeffrey Epstein instructed one of the victims, one of the white female victims, to recruit other young girls, and he explicitly barred black women from being part of the selection group. And at the same time, he turned around and used the racial slur to describe them. Now, under normal circumstances, I don't like the N-word. I don't typically use the N-word, but I think we need to hear it.
No black girls allowed on Epstein Island? Here's why. Jeff gave in at some point and told him, yes, I'll find some friends. Jeff wanted young, fresh girls, virgins. He told, don't bring me any N-words. Never ever brought any friends. At this point in the interview, Attorney Barry advised the following. At Epstein's request, she at times met people on the beach and may have told them something to the effect of, if you want to party, go to Epstein's. Following statement, shook her shoulders and head in the affirmative. Clarified that after what Jeff had done to her, she did not want it, the grapes and actual assaults, to be repeated. And she decided finding other girls for him, strangers she found in town, might spare her more abuse.
He basically used the word nigger multiple times. He used the word nigger multiple times in reference to black women, saying, do not get any niggers, when he's telling his victim / recruiter to get more women. He didn't want any black women, and he described them as niggers. How many? It's actually less syllables to use. He could have just said black, but he said niggers. Now, this is the point I'm making. Divesters love to ingratiate themselves. They bow down. They worship the white man. They'll do anything in their power to get close to the white man. They swear up and down that these white men are desiring them.
Black men, sorry to say, the white man don't care if I have a weave. He likes my hair the way it is. He doesn't care if I have a big butt. He likes me the way I am. He likes me the way I fucking am.
While there's so much controversy around racism in America, I'm going to tell you who loves black women a whole lot, and that's white men.
I have never been with a white man, but I would cheat on my husband for this guy.
Hey y'all, so y'all know how I made the video of me saying like how, white men would look at black women, they'll kind of just like stare at them or whatever. Why did I go to the gas station and I was walking in and I had got me some gum and some water? I'm just standing there. He runs to the door when I'm done checking out. He runs to the door, opens the door, and said, I could not let you walk out of here without me coming up to you and telling you that you are a beautiful young lady. I'm like, I said, oh, thank you so much. That was so sweet. He said, yes, you have a beautiful day. He just looking me up and down. And then he's like holding the door, watching me walk out. And I'm just like, okay. And it's crazy how like when you speak about things or you say things and then it ends up happening, like our mouths are really powerful. Like the words you use and say is very powerful. Because y'all, I think I found my Chad Dylan Cooper.
And a white man has never given me an issue about my appearance. They have never had an issue with me changing it up. In fact, white men absolutely love it. The white men at work, they go 10 toes down when black women change our hair, change our makeup. They want to be involved in the creative process. They want to know, what are you doing this week?
And another thing, I hate when I see my black sisters post they like white boys and then say they're the problem. What's the problem, sister? They'll be happy to have you. What are we talking about? Like, white boys love black girls.
Again, these are some of the most wealthiest and powerful white men. And you telling me that none of them, they were friends with them. He could have been like, hey, look, I know you don't rock with the black girls, but man, that's my ooh la la. None of those dudes did that because most of these guys don't want you. You divestors have to understand that we live in white America. Most of these white men do not like you. They don't respect you. And in many cases, if you go online and you look at this stuff, they have a hatred towards you. They don't find you attractive. They don't find you beautiful, and they don't find you intelligent. Just look at Charlie Kirk and the people who follow Charlie Kirk and what they believe about black women. So the divestors are constantly taking L's because they look up to these men. They think these men are so smart. They think these men are so brilliant when most of these men have never had to adapt. They've never had to grow. This is why they're afraid of competition. But I only want to just quickly point out, these are the men that you women desire. You say you like white men. You say that white men are better than black men. You make the claim that all these wealthy white men are in line to try to wife you up, to be with you, to almost worship you. But at the same time, it's the other way around. You worship them. And at the same time, they have a dislike, a disdain, a deep-seated hatred towards you. They don't respect you. They don't find you attractive. And black divestors and swirlers are constantly taking L's. Under normal circumstances, I would laugh, but this is pathetic. Again, I am glad that black women didn't get in this situation where the men were such white supremacists that it actually benefited black women for the first time, because normally a lot of these black women end up at the chop shop. These guys end up putting them in suitcases and spreading them across the city and all this kind of stuff. Normally this is what happens. And black women will remain silent when these events occur. But I am glad that Epstein didn't get his hands on a single black woman because of his hatred towards them. You divestors got to understand, these men don't like you. Based off of the numbers, they largely choose their own women first by a magnitude of 1,000. Then they go to the Asian women. And then after that, you have to deal with the Latinas. So next time you think that you're just going to go up and walk up to some random white dude who's got some wealth and power, think about it for a moment and think about the fact that you live in America that has a history of harming black women, whether it be through experiments, cruel medical procedures, all this kind of stuff. They have no problem. They have a history, a legacy of evil, of harming black women. And you voluntarily reach out to these men. You are the one who actually want these men when they have a history of harming black women with impunity.
As for Epstein, I've said this before, but just as a reminder, I do know somebody very, very close to this case who is in a position to know virtually everything. Not everything, but virtually everything. And this person has told me from the start, years and years ago, that Jeffrey Epstein, in this person's view, was not a pedophile. This is this person's view, who was there for a lot of this, but that he was into the barely legal type. Like he liked 15-year-old girls. That he wasn't into like 8-year-olds, but he liked the very young teen types that could pass for even younger than they were, but would look legal to a passerby. And that is what I believed, and that was what I reliably was told for many years. And it wasn't until we heard from Pam Bondi that they had tens of thousands of videos of alleged, forgive me, they used to call it kiddie porn, now they call it child sexual abuse material, on his computer, that for the first time I thought, oh no, he was an actual pedophile. I mean, only a pedophile gets off on young children abuse videos. She's never clarified it. I don't know whether it's true. I have to be honest. I don't really trust Pam Bondi's word on the Epstein matters anymore. Yeah, so I don't know what's true about him, but we have yet to see anybody come forward and say, I was I was under 10. I was under 14 when I first came within his purview. Look, it's You can say that's a distinction without a difference.
No, it's not.
I think there is a difference. There's a difference between a 15-year-old and a 5-year-old.